Greetings and welcome to another episode of His Will for Your Life. I am your host, Sherry Levon Harris, and I have joining me tonight one of our youngest guests ever, who's going to be on for the National Poetry Month. Her name is Devin Lashay Williams. She's the daughter of our standard panelist, uh, Daryl L. Williams, Sr. And so you're going to find that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Please like, tag, and share, and we'll be right back.
His will for your life with Cherie Harris. This is your weekly Wednesday 7 p.m. podcast. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Informative, hot topics, testimonies, interviews, along with your weekly guests and more. And now here's your host, Cherie Harris.
Welcome back to His Will for Your Life. Again, I am your host, Sherry Levon Harris. Please make sure that you like, tag, and share this episode because we're going to be in for a treat with Devin Lashay Williams. How are you, ma'am?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm so excited that you have accepted our invitation to be a guest on our show. You are our youngest guest, and I thank you for making yourself available for our National Poetry Month. And so I'm going to give you this opportunity to share with our our audience who you are.
Oh, well, first, thank you for having me. This is my first time doing anything like this, so it's nerve-wracking, but exciting. I currently am a senior at Columbus High School, and for my senior project, I decided to write a poetry book called PWI Blues. Here's what it looks like. Here's the cover.
Whoa.
And a few of the major themes, I think, of the book are just trying to fit in a place where you are not exactly similar enough to the majority that you feel as though you can easily blend into their ranks, and just being able to stick to who you are without compromising for other people.
Powerful. Wow, that is powerful. Okay. So I'm going to start in with the questions. But before I get into the questions, I just want you all to know that this young lady is an honor student. She'll be graduating May 18th with 6 chords and a stole. She's well-mannered, respectful. This is my first time meeting her, but we had a chance to chat a little bit in the background. And she comes from good stock. I'm proud of her. She's 17 and she's a senior in high school, and she's doing her thing. 6 chords. All right, so go ahead. We're going to go into our questions, okay?
All right.
What inspired you to start writing poetry?
I think mostly I've just always enjoyed art as a whole, from music to writing to visual art, etc. I've just always liked art and doing things with my hands and all of that cliche stuff. But writing has always been the thing that I've just done. I remember writing my first song for church when I was like 4, and then later writing some like narratives when I was 7. Especially when I was 7, I would write a lot of narratives and things like that. But I didn't really start writing poetry until I was about 9. I realize I'm getting off topic. I'm sorry, but
Okay.
but as just for inspiration,
Okay.
I find it odd for me to say that I'm just intrinsically inspired, but I feel like that's the best answer I can give you.
That's a great. It's very great. Thank you. And I hear you've been playing the violin since you were about 5 or 6. Well, no, for 5 or 6 years now.
Yes, I played the viola in my school's orchestra, and I've been playing since I was in the 6th grade, which is a long time ago now. But at the time, I really just wanted to do something. Going into middle school, I was like, I want to do something with music, and I was like, band sounds like a bad idea, because I was like, I'm gonna get braces. Bad idea. Chorus, I just didn't feel like I was gonna do well, and so I hate to say I settled, but ultimately I did feel like my best option was to go into the orchestra, and I'm glad that I did.
Awesome. Wow. My mother said, "This is so wonderful. God bless. God continue blessing her." All right. So, what are some of your favorite poets and why? Who are some of your favorite poets and why?
I mean, I can't really say I have any favorites. I mean,
Okay.
I feel like a bit of a fraud because I don't actually read that much poetry these days, and it's been a while since I've actually read some of other people's poetry.
That's okay. That is okay. How do you approach writing a new poem?
Usually, whenever the inspiration strikes me, or whenever I have an idea for a line that I keep tossing around in my head, like for days on end, I'll think of a line and I'm like, I have to put this in a poem somewhere. I have to write it down, and then from there, if I have one line specifically, always build the rest of the poem around that line.
Wow.
Or at least I'll try to. Keyword try.
Wow. That's amazing. So you take that one line that you receive and then you just build around it.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. That's great. What themes or subjects do you find yourself returning to in your poetry?
Anger a lot of the time, which sounds really like, whoa, that's,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like a very calm person, and I am for the most part now, but it just anger about things that are happening around me, and I feel like, oh, I don't have any control over this, but I also can't like lash out because that isn't productive and doesn't get you anywhere in the end. And so ultimately it'll just channel itself, not necessarily into inspiration for writing and all that, but it'll appear more often than not.
Okay. Would you say it's therapy for you when you let it out that way? Or no?
I guess you could say that. I mean, all of my writing isn't mean-spirited and angry. It's just
I know what you mean.
It's just it happens to come up, I think, the most frequently. That, and it just fear as well. And I mean, they can mingle quite easily in my writing.
So your anger is built up about what's going on around us, like in the community and in our nation and things like that.
You could say that, yes.
Okay. All right. How has your poetry evolved over time?
When I originally started writing my poetry, I wrote very loose free verse, which I mean I still do. I like free verse probably more than more standard forms of formal verse.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the this sounds really superficial, but one of the worst things for me for a very long time was coming up with things that rhymed and sounded good together. I could come up with individual lines that were like, oh, that sounds witty or insightful, but I could never put it with other things. It was just there.
Okay.
And nowadays, if I come up with that witty line, I can usually come up with 2 or 3 more, not necessarily as witty lines, but things that melt together well with it, and just generally, my writing has become more cohesive. I'd say.
Okay. All righty. Do you find many poets in your age group that you can relate to, or you haven't come across any?
I actually don't come across that many poets my age. Most of them that I've, I guess, encountered have been considerably older than me, which is interesting to say the least.
Okay. What influenced your creativity in writing, other than anger?
My family, they encourage my creative endeavors. I think more the most out of just anyone and anything. Knowing that I have support from them whenever I'm trying to do something that may be out there, I guess you could say, is it's very helpful. It influences me a lot.
Great. So one of our guests, one of our top fans, she asked a question, Paula Williams. I'm a few minutes late. How old are you?
Hello to Miss Paula. I am 17 years old. I will be 18 in July.
Great. So what are your goals in the future as it relates to poetry, writing, the arts?
Well, first I want to possibly publish this book, PWI Blues, and then I also just want to write more poetry, although I'm not sure if I'll publish those poems as well. And as for just other sorts of art, I want to continue just sticking my metaphorical fingers into all the pies of every type of art I can think of.
Right. So the book that you're holding right now, it isn't published where someone can purchase it yet?
Not yet.
Okay. So we're going to make that happen soon, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we are. Because I'm quite sure people want to hear from you. And I don't think this is your last time being in the public view. I can see that you're going to go places. And it's going to get easier and easier as you go along. You speak very well, and I see why you are an honor student.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What are some exciting projects other than this publication that you're working on?
Oh. I'm not sure if this counts as an exciting project, but recently I played a solo for
Mm.
an ensemble festival. It's not
Okay.
at school, but for my school.
Mhm.
It was.
I like the cello. One of my former foster children, foster son, he actually played the cello, and I forget the name of that school. Music is in Boston. Is it Boston or New York? One of them. But they wanted him to be a part of their program. That's how good he was. But he didn't recognize the gift that within himself. And so he blew that opportunity, but I'm quite sure it will come around again for him. He's really good. So we hear that you have a few poems that you have written, and we'd like to hear from you.
Okay. I have 3 that I will be reading.
Okay.
I'll start with this first one that's called Recognition, and I'll explain a little bit more about everything, the contents of it, I should say, after the fact. She's sitting in class and preparing to learn more about the geography of a place she's never been to and probably won't ever visit. Being the obedient and timid student that she is, she stays in the seat she was assigned. She wasn't late. She walked in quietly and calmly. Perhaps this is the problem. Earlier that morning, she is being instructed. Don't mess up your hair. She tries her hardest to comply, thinking of how long it took to get it that way. Silky straight. Back in the present, the teacher proceeds to take roll. She goes down her roster, checks each seat for a body, then gets to her. And for a moment, perhaps, she's confused. The next thing she says is so-and-so here? The student turns around and says, here, while smiling a little, just to prove that this was okay. In her mind is a flurry of thoughts, but she gives the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was confused? It seemed unlikely, but it was plausible. Technically, this teacher was new. Technically, she'd only known her a month. Technically, the student did appear different, regardless of the sameness of the face. What's wrong? Nothing wrong with a bit of forgetfulness, right? Naturally, the teacher pays it no mind after that day, but the student remembers. She'll always remember. I'll always remember. So that one was called Recognition. Is based off of an actual thing that happened to me about 5 years ago now, when I was in 7th grade. I don't remember the entire context other than what's mentioned in the poem. I was sitting in class that day let me backtrack a little. Every day I would wear my hair one very specific way, and a little big puff on top of my head. And it's very, just something I saw as what I would do. And so every once in a while, get my hair pressed out, get it blow up, get it pressed out. And this teacher who would join the staff, faculty and staff, just not long before this, after an incident at the school, but that's another. I don't remember everything else that was going on, but I remember going to my seat, sitting in the exact same seat that she assigned me every day to sit in every single day, and just sitting there. And then while she's going over the roll, she says like, "Oh, like is Devin here?" And I turn around and look at her, and I'm like, "I'm right here." And it kind of boggled my mind. I was lost. I was very confused. Like, how, like, I've been your student for a little while at this point, and I was thinking, surely you should recognize my face somewhat. Like, I am your student at this point, at the very least. Even if you don't remember my name, like, my face should be the same. Like, this isn't a new person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really, it shook me up a little.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rambling again. I'm sorry, but
No, it's okay. It really is okay because your book is about several different things about what you're dealing with. It's about life. It's about interacting with people. And so this is you. And that's what's going to help you in your creativity of being yourself. We cannot be like anyone else. And each poet that we had each week, they're different. We have one who did the spoken word and another one who did about life and her relationship with Christ. So, you know, we're all different. And that's what makes art so beautiful, right?
right.
Yeah. So you're you. We have a question from our audience. What are your plans for the future?
Well, after I graduate, I plan to go to college. I'm going to Columbus State and majoring in creative writing. Actually,
Oh,
well, as of right now, I'll probably end up changing it. Actually, I thought about changing it and majoring in pre-law before heading to law school because
mhm,
I was very sort of indecisive
mhm.
up in the air right now.
Okay. I hear you are fluent in Japanese.
I wouldn't say fluent.
You wouldn't.
I personally would not.
Okay.
I studied the language as my foreign language in school,
Mhm.
and I, of course, with taking the classes for school, I've become some acquainted with not only the language but also the culture, and even now I can remember some chunks of it, I guess you could say.
Mhm. Okay. That's wonderful. Do you plan on learning another language?
Maybe. I mean, I whenever I learn languages, I learn them mostly for fun. I mean, I know, of course, the point of language is to communicate ideas and thoughts and things of that nature. But sometimes it's just fun.
It is. Do you have another poem you'd like to share with us?
I do. Um, this one's a later poem that I wrote called "As Your Dream Girl." It's a sonnet. As Your Dream Girl. Acoustic guitar plays in memories of me, and my form has sunlight all around. In your fantasy of verse I am bound, but that is not where I would like to be. I am not yours, perfect and pretty, nor do I leave flowers on the ground. I know my voice is not a pleasing sound. I am not your muse, but long to be free. But perhaps you may catch a glimpse of the dream girl you drove away, using your grand gestures and metaphors. I hope to cause a major eclipse as I leave with gusto and a sway, after having sent signals like semaphores. So that's that one.
Okay.
All right, that one. So that one's a little like a response, I guess you could say, to the very classic idea of a sonnet, which a lot of the time it deals with love and oh, there's this perfect love interest, and I want her so bad, and I can't have her because I'm some bully guy who's just not up to her standards or whatever. And I think that's kind of like I hate to call it lame. That's not that sounds mean. It's like, oh, that's lame. But I'm trying to get into the headspace of the perfect love interest who's just some person, like at the end of the day, like that's some like girl, like she's not an angel, she's not divine, she's a human being just like you, the guy who is making her out to be something she's not.
Right. You know who you're reminding me of as I'm sitting here speaking with you. First of all, you're wise. Your wisdom precedes you. You're an old soul. You are far beyond your years. But I'm thinking about the songs of Solomon and how he just wrote how he was feeling or what he was going through. And that reminds me of your style of writing. And I like it. And I think you should continue on. As Paula said, you can do a lot with the major of creative writing, as she had, that was her minor while she was in college. But you are very creative. And, sometimes we don't just want to, we think poetry, I should say, is all about rhymes. Like one stanza has to rhyme with the next stanza, and that's not really how poetry goes. It's an art. And so your creativity comes out in your writing and, with your hands or, different things. You also write music. And so it comes in all shapes, sizes, and, and colors, if you will. But I enjoy your style of writing. I
Thank
do.
you.
You're welcome. You have something else for us?
Yes, I have one more poem.
Okay.
This one is called Burned Back. Skin stained by the sun's harsh rays, and a soul branded by subjugation. The end of this toil is nowhere in sight. Row after row, inch after inch, lines and lines of trouble in this sea of frivolous things. More than anything, you long for home. You promise yourself not to take it for granted, should you ever see it again. There is no comfort here, not of family or friends, or familiar ground. There is no crunch of sand underneath your feet, nor is there cool salt water gently sloshing on the shore. There's only dirt. Dirt on the floor of your home. Dirt on your body. Dirt in your wounds, bound to get infected. Your form is permanently changed by time, like art. Is your suffering art? Is it beauty? You can't say. And that's the end of that one.
How often do you write?
How often? It truly just depends on whether or not I'm feeling inspired or if I'm going through a period of writer's block, which happens a lot more frequently than it might seem.
And how do you handle writer's block?
Usually I handle it by either going to do something like that's, I guess you could say, low intensity on my brain and just absorbing whatever it is that I'm doing, like watching a video, or I guess reading isn't low intensity, but like reading a book.
Uh-huh.
Other times I'll go and just like read up on different tropes about like different things, and I might come up with an idea that way.
Okay. That's good. What's next for you? I know you're going to college. I know you're going to continue writing, and we're going to get your book published. Is that going to be your only publication that you do? Are you interested in writing, novels, books, or just poetry?
I mean, even though I guess you could argue I'm a poet now, my home with writing is in narratives and not in, I guess, like longer forms of prose. And so I think if I do publish more books, which I'm considering it, and of course without the stress of the deadlines of senior project, I can be more loose about it and work on my own time. I think that I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I definitely could write more books to publish. And
okay, would you write under Devin Lashay, or would you have you go under another name?
depends on what I guess it depends on what I'm writing. I mean, I think writing just like books like PWI Blues, I think I could write under my own name, but if like, let's just say I want to write something like a little more, I guess, like dangerous or experimental, going under a pen name might be better just to, I guess, disconnect myself from, not necessarily like the fallback or fallout or anything like that, but from the idea that I have to be this person all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I can have different facets of myself be presented at other different times.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, Devin, I hear have a prom Saturday.
I do. I have prom Saturday.
You have your gown all picked out.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. Plenty of pictures.
I'm not a big pictures person.
You take beautiful pictures, though. What color are you wearing?
I've been told I'm very grim and dark, but my dress is black.
Black is sophisticated, classy. Yeah, that's nice. One thing I recognize about you and I love about you is you go against the grain. You don't always try to fit in with everyone else, and that's a good thing. And you'll be most remembered. Did you see that black dress? I know you'll look gorgeous, Paula says, and I'm quite sure she will. So, are you excited about it? Nervous about it?
I mean, I guess I'm nervous, but I feel like it's like it's a big deal in like the cultural sense, I guess you could say. But I mean, at the end of the day, I guess like it's a party for school, and there of course there are like memories that will be attached to it. But that it's it's a Saturday. We had something for school.
All right. I'm trying to remember if I had gone to my senior prom. I don't think I did, or I went to my junior. I don't remember. It was one of them, but I did go. And me and my proms, they still laugh about that night. I'm going to tell them to go back to look at this replay. That was a funny evening. That was really funny. But anyway, enough about me. You have a question from Paula. Do you have a church home? And if so, are you active in your church?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I've been going to River City Pentecostals for the past 8 years, I believe, and I am part of the youth group there.
Awesome. Do you do a lot of writing in your church activities, church programs, plays?
Not really.
No.
Don't do a lot of writing. It's more community-based things.
Really? Okay. Like what?
I mean, community outreach mostly. That's the biggest thing, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a playwright. I haven't written a play in a long time, but I used to write most of the plays as we had various programs around Christmas and Resurrection Sunday. So that's what I did. So I enjoy writing, but I haven't written any poems. I'm not a poet, but I have met a few this month. And I've met you, and I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to see that book published. Are you finished? How many pages is it?
Well, in terms of just writing,
Mm-hmm.
just poems, it's 151 pages, and just in total with with writing and everything else. I believe it's 167, which those.
Wow. I'm amazed. So I was told to ask, is your dad your favorite person in the world?
I don't rank people. It doesn't seem right to do that.
You're so wise. So everyone, if you weren't on when we first started, this is Daryl Williams' daughter. Um, he will be on Sunday actually for our panel discussion. But this is his daughter. You know, Daryl is a standard and he's a character. And we all love to watch him. But this is his daughter. And he's actually in the background giving her some support. And he's feeding me some of those little things we didn't talk about. so he told me about your prom. Okay. It's nice having a little producer in the background, Daryl. Thank you. Okay, we have some comments here. Do you enjoy speaking in front of an audience?
I have to say, I not really. I'm very, very shy. And while I've done public speaking like things before, it's always nerve-wracking. Like back in January, actually, I wrote and read a poem for this diversity showcase at school. And being up there alone on the stage in front of all the people who came to see the showcase, just to read something that I wrote was
wow,
terrifying.
Really?
But people enjoyed it, and I was glad that I did it ultimately, because I was able to reach people and touch them with my words, which is always a good thing.
Okay. So we're going to close. I thank you so much for being our guest tonight. I've learned a little bit about you. I've learned from you. So I want you to take this time now for someone who may want to get into writing, creative writing, poetry, the arts, around your age. So I want you to speak to teenagers right now. To encourage them in school, encourage them in their writing, in their efforts of, whatever it is that they're trying to do, and mostly to just simply be themselves.
To be very honest, there's not a lot. There's no requirement for being a writer, being a poet. You can always all you have to do really is just write things down. Write down your observations, write down how you feel, write down your favorite color. Think about why you like that color so much, and there you could come up with something. You could wax poetic about your favorite color, and it ends up sounding okay sometimes, or all the time. You don't have to have a super high standard for yourself, because ultimately, if you have that high standard for yourself, if it's too lofty, you're never going to reach it. And it's just not something that perfectionism is not something that you want to keep within yourself ultimately, because you as a person, because you are a human being, fundamentally you are flawed, and that is perfectly fine. To be flawed is to be real, and to be real is one of the best things you can be. And writing, expressing your ideas creatively, is not only a good outlet for feelings, but it's also just a good outlet to touch other people, to get them to see how you see the world and explain what it is that makes you tick. How do you perceive the world? how do they perceive the world, and what ideas are similar, and what's different. Just in short, to be an author, to be a young author, to be a poet, is to express yourself. And that is probably the number one thing you should do when you write. Just express it. Whatever it is that you want to express. Doesn't matter how. Just show it off, I guess you could say.
Wonderful. Wonderfully put. All of that was good advice. My mom says that's good advice for a person that's interested in writing. Thank you, Mom, for joining us tonight. But you are so wise. Very. I feel like I'm talking to someone who is much older than 17. And I like where you're headed. And once your book is published, which will be soon, I would love to have you back on so that others can purchase your book.
All right.
And I want to talk to you in the background, so please don't go away. We'll be off the air, but I want to talk to you just before we go off. Are there any questions that you have for our guest before she leaves? You are wise beyond your years. Yes, you are. Thank you, Mom. Yeah, so any questions for Devin Lashay before we go off the air? Paula says she wishes you the best in all of your future endeavors.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. I don't always do this, but I'm going to do it now. Do you have a Cash App?
I don't.
We're going to find a way. If you guys would like to be a blessing to Devin Lashay. I just called you by your middle name, like that's your first name. And if you want to be a blessing to her, you can do it by, let's see here. I'm going to have you send it to His Will for Your Life. Our Cash App is up here, and I will make sure that she gets anything that you're blessing her with. Our Cash App is $AllaboutHim3. Again, that's Cash App, $AllaboutHim3. If you would like to be a blessing to this young lady, to help her publish her book and help her with her future goals, and help her with her prom. I know she doesn't need it. She didn't ask me this. Oh, yes. My little producer's talking to me in the background. But yes, so we want to be a blessing to Devin. And so please do so. And I believe it wouldn't fall on good ground. This is a woman young lady that we're going to see again. But the next time we see her, we're going to see her on a bigger platform, right? We're going to go into the store and see her picture. She's book signing. She has her books, right? So I believe there are great things that are going to come from you. I'm getting choked up and teary-eyed right now because I see you. I see you, and not long. I see you. Okay, so we're gonna go. Please Cash App her at $AllaboutHim3, and we're gonna be a blessing to this young lady. We're gonna sow a seed into her now before she gets big. Okay. Thank you all for joining us. Please come back again next week. We're going to stay in the same vein of recognizing our poets in the National Poetry Month. Good night, everyone. Remember, it's okay not to be okay. Just don't stay in that place. We have some questions coming up. We have love going on. We want to see prom pictures. Yes, we do. Want to see prom pictures, and we're going to see them, of course. Right?
Yes, we'll see something, I guess.
Yes, and we can also just be a blessing. She's going to be graduating May 18th. Her prom is Saturday, and we need that book published. Okay, she already has 100 and some, what was it? You said it's 151, but it's about 167, I think you said, with all the other things. Yeah, so this is no little book. So we want to support this young lady. She's one of our own. She can be doing other things, but she isn't. She's in the church. She's an honor student. Did I say she has 6 chords that she's going to be walking down the aisle with and a stole? So this is a young lady with a bright future, and we want to be a part of it because she is our own. She's our own because of her skin, and she's our own because she belongs to the kingdom. And so we want to be a blessing to her. You all have a good night. Thank you for supporting us on this show tonight. And we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Please join us again next week for another riveting, informative segment of His Will for Your Life podcast.